Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and this is part 2 of our bouncing ball tutorial. So we've got all the projects set up and module 1 project set up. So we're going to go ahead and start where we left off, and we're going to go ahead and start adding the main keyframes. So we need to drop the ball down and have it bounce off the ground. So a couple things we need to go over. So keyframing is, if you want to keyframe something, you can keyframe it in many different ways. You can keyframe by hitting the S key, and that will add a tag on your timeline. Okay. And so when we talk about our timeline, this is below the actual ball. We see we have a timeline here, and this is our time slider. Okay, and we can go ahead and move those keyframes. So these are just frame 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. And we can set those up. We can start a start time frame right here. We can start that. Sometimes we'll start it at 0, but we're going to start it at 1 on this one. And we can type in 16 on the bottom here. That's how long you want your animation to be. So if I add up to go to 30 frames and hit enter, you'll notice that our time slider here is not all the way to 30. So I still have to take this. I'm going to click on the end here and just move it all the way to 30. So you can type in any number of frames that you want, where you want it to start and where you want it to end. Okay. And if you want to just show a certain amount of frames, let's say if we have a 2000 frame animation that we're creating and we only want to work on it maybe 15 frames at a time, a lot of people will do that, and you'll just use this slider to be able to do it in small chunks, small portions of the animation. So we're going to get that back to 16. Okay. And we also have on the right hand side, on the lower right hand corner, is the playhead. That's called the playhead. We've got play the animation. If you click on that, it'll play the animation. You can go to the beginning. This one right here, we can click on that to go to the beginning. And at the very far right, we can click on that one, and that goes to the end of the animation. You can go from 1 frame at a time. So if I want to go ahead 1 frame at a time, I can click on this, step forward 1 frame, click on that, and I can step forward 1 frame, and then I can go back on this one. I can step back 1 frame. Okay. We can also click on this where it says step back 1 key. So whenever we have keys, it lights up as red. Okay. So it lets us know there's a keyframe there. And we're going to need to do a keyframe on keyframe. And now let's go ahead and get started. Let's go back again. Once I got that started, I went ahead of myself here a little bit. Let's go into the settings preferences. So you can either do it, click on the little guy with a gear running, like he's running away from this gear. That's called preferences, the very lower right hand corner. You can click on that, and that'll open up preferences. You can also go to Windows settings preferences, and it'll take you into the same spot. Okay, so when we do animations, we're not really working in the settings part. We're going to be working on the time slider. So let's click on the time slider. A lot of times this will default at play every frame. Okay, you don't want to do that because it'll play as fast as it possibly can because of your graphics card. If you have a very fast graphics card, it'll just run really, really fast. So what we want to do is you want to set that up at 24 frames times 1. Okay, so that'll give us in real time 24 frames per second. Okay, so you also just want to go ahead and click on save. So those are the things we have to think about first, is our timeline, and we'll talk about scrubbing in just a little bit. But basic navigation and information about the navigation is essential. So that's our timeline, our time slider, and our time range. Okay, so I'm going to put that time, I'm going to take the range back up to 16. Okay, so 1 to 16. And if I scrub, this is what it means. You click on your scrubbing what frame you're on. You can scrub, or you can just click on the frame you want to be on just by clicking, left mouse button clicking. That'll take you where you need to be. Or you can use your playhead to move around. Okay, whichever you prefer. All right. So now we know a little bit about the time slider and how all that works. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move that object up. We're going to click on the controller, and it looks like we've got a bunch of arrows going in all 4 directions, up, down, side to side. What we're going to do is we're going to move it up about, I would say something like 8.6. And we're just kind of get that framed up a little bit like that. And then we're going to go ahead and keyframe that. So hit the S key. Now, we also have auto keyframe toggle. Okay. If you click on that, it'll automatically keyframe for you, which is kind of nice. Okay, so we're going to turn that on. Sometimes that's something that you probably don't want to do right when you begin, but I'm going to show it to you. When you get into getting more comfortable with animation, we'll probably have that on all the time. Probably have that on, but that will keyframe, and I'll show you how it works. So if I go to my next keyframe, which is going to be 8, that's going to be the down position. All I have to do is move that down, and it automatically keyframes, okay, that position. Now the drawback to this is it keyframes all of these translations, rotate XYZ and translate XYZ and rotate XYZ, and it keyframes everything. That's the downside to this. Now if I hit the S key, it will go ahead and keyframe that. So we've got a keyframe on every one of those things, and there may be times where you don't want to have all that keyframe. So I'm going to go Control Z back, okay, and we'll just start right here again. And if I click on this and I move it down to the position I want, now of course I can't really tell. I have to go to the side view, make sure I'm not going through the floor. And right now when I animate, I want to make sure especially if you have a floor, you don't want if you have a character, you don't want your feet to go through the floor. Well, you don't want your ball to go through it either. So sometimes you have to go to the orthographic viewport and make sure it just hits the ground. And then you just want to hit the key. Okay. So the thing is, because I didn't have it set at the keyframe that I wanted, it didn't really set a key there. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these if I want to get rid of those keyframes that I had before. So break connections, there we go. And we're going to go back to frame 1 and go back up. Okay, so we're going to go to 8.6. And we're going to we can right click over this too as well. We can hit the S key, which keyframes all of those translates, okay? And there may be a point, I'm going to go Control Z, there may be a point where you just want to keyframe just one certain axis, okay? Like today we're just doing one axis. Why not just keyframe that? So we'll just do that by right clicking over this and go key selected, and that will only keyframe that one position at that one axis, which is Y, okay? And that comes in handy because of things that you want to animate, and you may not want to have one translate conflict with another translate or rotate, so you just want to keyframe that one particular axis. So we're only going up and down with the ball, so that makes sense, okay? So we're going to go to frame 8, okay, and we know we want to go into the down position, so go to the front view and move that down. Okay, and once I have that set up, I go ahead and right click over this and go to key selected. So now when I scrub, meaning I click on this keyframe here and I go back and forth, and you can see if I go in my perspective, I can actually move this and scrub. This is what's called scrubbing the timeline. So I'm going to scrub the timeline so I can see what it's doing. And I can also play it. So if I click on play on the playhead, it'll just loop around. It'll just loop back and forth again. Okay. So I'm going to click on stop. I'm going to click on go back to the first frame. Okay. And another thing you can look at here is I've got it on loop. Now we are going to do a looped animation, and how I got that is I can click on this icon that says continuous loop. If I click on it, it will just loop one time. Okay, it says it's like a loop plus like a little 1 next to it. And so when I play the animation, it'll just play one time and then stop. Okay, and you can click on that again, and that'll play and go backwards. So it'll play forward and then backwards, which is crazy. So you got lots of cool things you can do. So I'm going to stop that and go back to the beginning, and we're just going to play loop one time. Okay? All right. All right, so there are going to be instances that you want to have loop one time, or a continuous loop, or a loop that goes forward and backwards. Now, I don't really use the forward and backwards that much, so I'm just going to go play a continual loop. That's what that looks like here. And so when I click on the play, it just continues through and repeats itself. All right, so I'm going to go back to the beginning. I want to show you how to copy and paste because I want the ball to go back up again. So it's going to go down at frame 8, and then I want to go back again at frame 16. All right, so before we do that, I want to make sure that I have the same key for frame 9. So I'm going to go ahead and right click over it and go to copy, and I'm going to go to frame 9 and then paste. There we go. And then what I want to do is I'm going to scrub back, so I got 8 and 9, so you can copy and paste keyframes around anywhere you want to. You can delete keyframes, you can cut keyframes. So if I want to go ahead and go to cut, I can cut that keyframe, and I can click on frame 12 and go to paste. Okay, so you can cut keyframes, you can delete keyframes. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that, and I want you to practice this. I'm going to go ahead and copy this again and then paste. So cut is basically you cut it, it'll disappear, and then when you go to the next frame where you want to paste it, you can paste it at that point. You can copy a key and then paste. Okay, so you can do all kinds of stuff, but right now we're just going to kind of focus on what we need to do. And at frame 1, I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to go to frame 16. I'm going to go to paste. There we go. So now when I go to the beginning, I'm going to go ahead and play that, and we've got an up and down position on the ball. Okay, so I'm going to stop that, go to the beginning, and I'm going to do basically just kind of scrub it and see how it looks. So we're going to have it go down and then pause just for a little bit at the bottom, okay, as it hits the ground, and then go back up again. Okay, we have that little pause so we can have like a squash and stretch. So in the next video, we're going to talk about adding ease in and ease out and squash and stretch, because right now it just looks mechanical, doesn't it? So in the next video, we'll talk about how to change that so it doesn't look mechanical, it looks more natural. All right, I'll see you in the next video, and we'll add squash and stretch and ease in and ease out.